Welcome back to Retire Southern, where we share authentic experiences and meaningful connections from the heart of the American South. Our message is simple: don't wait for retirement to start living. I am your host, James Lewis, and today I am in Athens, Georgia, with the co-founder and CEO of Comforts Brewing Company, Adam Beauchamp. Adam, thank you for inviting me here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So we're sitting here in Cura, which we're going to get to in a minute, but I always like to start with a little bit of the backstory.
Sure thing.
And you hear a little bit more about your roots. So did you grow up here in Athens? Where did you grow up?
Not in Athens. I grew up in suburban Atlanta, Gwinnett County, Snellville and Lawrenceville. So yeah, back in the 80s. But yeah, Georgian through and through.
Any siblings growing up?
Yeah, I have a younger brother and a younger sister. Yeah, my parents are Southern. So mom's from Mississippi, dad's from Atlanta, and we're native Atlantans, which is increasingly rare, I suppose.
Where did you go to school in Gwinnett County?
I went to Brookwood High School, so go Broncos.
So as growing up as a child, were you even thinking about beer?
My dad drank beer. He was a responsible drinker. He gave me a sip when I was probably a little small. Of course, thought it was disgusting. I think that's why he probably did it, which may have delayed my impulse to drink beer for some time. I became interested in it when I attended UGA here. There was the craft beer movement was really starting to get some legs, and we had a kegerator at some of my apartments, and we would get craft beer kegs from time to time, and I was just fascinated by the variety of flavor that you could achieve with just beer malt and hops and yeast, and that really ignited a curiosity that I wound up following.
That's awesome. So you got interested in beer at UGA. What was your motivation to pursue these dual degrees in genetics and ecology?
Yeah, I've got two. When I entered into UGA, I wanted the genetics degree. I usually say I watched Jurassic Park one too many times. I was just fascinated by this concept of, a molecule that can predict life outcomes, and really very interested from a young age in the way the world actually works biologically. I remember talking to friends who wanted to be lawyers, and I was like, that's all man-made stuff. There's some deeper things going on here in the world. So, physics, biology, life sciences were fascinating. So I gravitated towards that from an early age. A great biology teacher in high school. So, wanted to pursue wherever that, might take me. Academia felt like a big pull, so wound up going to grad school. But at UGA, ecology became a passion. I had a professor, Dr. Barrett, who worked with Dr. Odom, who founded the school and really fathered modern ecology. Dr. Barrett really impressed on me the urgency of the climate crisis, the biodiversity crisis, and just spoke with a lot of passion about this stuff and got me really interested. So I just kept taking electives in ecology, and eventually the advisor was like, hey, just kind of take 2 more classes and you got a dual major.
Right.
So I decided to do it. And at the time, I remember just considering that if I didn't wind up liking genetics, I could go study coral reefs in the Caribbean or something like that with an ecology degree. So it felt like a good backup plan at the time.
Since you brought it up, are you certified scuba diver? Or?
No, I'm passionate about snorkeling, though. Anytime I get to go on a vacation, I've never taken the time to do the whole training and the certification, but you can see a lot just with a mask and a snorkel.
Oh, totally.
And I've been to some places that are just completely mind-boggling, and just that concept of an ecosystem comes to life when you're face-to-face with, this complex thing underwater in a coral reef. So I love it.
Yeah. Be careful with that snorkeling. It's a gateway. Okay. So that's how I got into scuba. So did you and Katie meet while you were at Georgia, or did that come later?
We knew each other in high school. We had mutual friends, wound up reconnecting after we had gone to undergrad. I had moved back to Atlanta, and I was attending Emory. Katie had moved back from her undergrad at Georgia Southern. We crossed paths and sort of rekindled a friendship and started dating after that, and went on some of our first dates there at Sweetwater Brewing. So yeah, it was all happening for me at the same time.
So she was at Sweetwater?
No, we were just fans.
Okay.
So we had a friend, actually, a mutual friend, that had gotten a job brewing beer up at Sweetwater. And they were having these facility tours where you get free samples, and we wanted to go check it out. It was my first brewery tour, I believe, going on some dates with Katie.
So you go to Atlanta to attend grad school at Emory, and after starting your PhD, so you start your PhD in genetics, and molecular biology.
That's it.
So then you just veered off to Sweetwater. So how did this whole thing work out?
I was a year and a half into this PhD program. I was really honored to have been accepted by Emory. I got a full ride scholarship and had a job in a lab and working on a gene product called telomerase. So this is actually something that prevents aging potentially. It's always present in stem cells, so it allows stem cells to continue growing continuously. It's not always active everywhere else in the body, so I felt like if it could be mastered, then there's potential to slow or stop the aging process. It's a really interesting field, but I was starting to feel just frustrated with science in general. By year 2, it's really hard to come up with a unique discovery in science, and you see people around you spending 7-10 years following a hypothesis and then realizing that they were wrong the whole time. And they probably learned some things along the way, but it can be an incredibly frustrating vocation. At the time, there was some stifling coming from the government. These were George W. Bush years where stem cell research was controversial, and I was of the mind that we were doing things that could lead to cancer cures with some of this technology. And so, scientists were pretty frustrated. The people that I were looking up to in the field were not enjoying their career outcomes. And so I had a bit of an existential threat moment where I felt like I've gone pretty far down this path and I need to seriously explore something else. I was in a lab that was all Chinese speaking and no one spoke English except for my principal investigator, which was isolating at times as well. So I wound up feeling like I needed to make a change. I had been very interested in beer. I never thought of it as a career really until I started going to these tours at Sweetwater. I saw these people working there that were really just energetic, they were enthusiastic, they were really successful and clearly enjoying their jobs. And so I just decided one day that I was going to completely change the course of my life and try something very different. So I dropped out of Emory, had to tell my parents I was not going to cure cancer. I was going to make beer instead. Difficult conversation across the board, but Katie was always really supportive, wanted to help me follow my dreams. So I began just showing up in the morning at Sweetwater. They weren't really hiring, but I was not going to let them back down from hiring me on. So I worked for a solid month without, any kind of pay. And eventually they set me down and, gave me a job interview. And it was Kevin McNerney, who's the original brewmaster at Sweetwater at the time. And I would say this is a fairly normal kind of occurrence in those days. It was a sort of get your foot in the door method was the way to get a job in the craft beer industry. But I told Kevin, I wanted to open a brewery someday in the job interview, and I meant it. But I'm sure he heard that from most everybody that was interviewing at the time as well. They offered me a job, started on packaging. So I worked in packaging for a time. Eventually, they needed support in the lab, and they knew I knew how to, work in a lab. I'd never worked in a brewery quality control lab, so I had a lot to learn. I worked in there for a couple months, and then went to the cellar, worked in the cellars for a while, and then was a brewer. Sort of bounced around production and just tried to learn as much as I could over the course of 7 years working there. Saw them through a tremendous amount of growth. When I started, they were right around 30,000 barrels a year, and when I left, they were passing 200,000. So a lot of dynamic change, a lot of maturation happened over that time, and I'm really just grateful for everything that I learned there and took from it.
It's crazy to think that you literally started with zero experience.
Yeah.
Zero experience in the craft beer
I
industry.
looked up, when I decided to make the change, I looked up how to brew beer on Wikipedia. And I was like, this is more interesting than I thought.
Yeah, and that's really, for me, that's what kind of started my affiliation or my love for craft beer. Sweetwater was actually the first craft beer I ever had when I moved to Atlanta.
Yeah.
But we're not here to talk about Sweetwater. Let's talk about Creature Comforts.
Yes, please.
You were at Sweetwater for 7 years, and then you're like, okay, I'm leaving. I'm going to start over again.
Yeah.
So just talk about that pivot to Creature Comforts,
Yeah.
please.
Yet another time, I got to give credit to my wife, Katie, who's been with me through all this dynamism. But I was starting to feel like there was going to be more opportunity out there. Georgia did not have a really eclectic beer market at the time. We had Sweetwater and Terrapin for a number of years, an Atlanta Brewing Company, and then we got Red Hair. And then, right around that time, 2012, when I was starting to consider starting my own brewery, you had Monday night, 3 taverns were getting going. So there were starting to become, opportunities. So I thought, all right, this is really getting to a fever pitch. It's probably time for me. I've been here for, at the time, 6 years, feeling like I learned a lot and had something to offer. I had iterated on homebrew the entire time that I was at Sweetwater. I forced myself into a pattern where I would homebrew every 2 weeks, no matter what. If I went on vacation, I had to make it up. So I was very adamant about that and stringent to always do that. I didn't get as much recipe development experience as I had wanted there. We made a lot of 420 and that was fine, but I had been developing beers for some time. I was not good at developing the brand. So I had iterated on a few different names that never really worked, trying to come up with a fully formed concept. I just wasn't there professionally yet. And so I found David Stein, who became my business partner, who had the idea for Creature Comforts. And it was a really, thought-provoking, alliterative, and a great name and a concept that he had developed that was getting a lot of attention from people just as a home brewer. He had a social media page for it, and he had this following, and I had known him at UGA through mutual friends, and so reached out, tried each other's home brews, and felt like we had a really complementary skill set, and decided that we would try to pursue this thing together.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So you guys opened the doors in 2014?
So it took a couple of years.
Yep.
David wanted to start something really small. I understood that, there weren't real direct consumer routes in Georgia with the law framework. So you needed to start pretty large in order to have a successful business. So it took us a few years to get the right investment involved. And I credit David with that. He really stuck it out and was making a name for himself so much that Hugh Atchison, who's a local restaurateur here, started the 5 and 10 and recently sold it, actually. But he knew that David was a brewer, and there was a group of investors who had knowledge that this building that we're sitting in was going to become available in downtown Athens. They wanted to start a brewery. They connected with David and signed David on to start Creature Comforts here. And David brought me in as a professional brewer. I was basically the first contact that he had to work with. So yeah, he and I went to work to come up with a concept. We basically built in my little carport at my house in Decatur and turned it into a nicer home brewing plant. We signed a lease here on the building. We got some architectural plans, engineering. We raised half of the money from some of these investors that he found, but the other half from friends and family in little increments. So had a lot of sort of mom and pop investors that believed in us on our side, which was very heartening. But David and I set out to get this thing going, managed a construction project, bought a bunch of equipment, never done anything like that before. I'd never done any construction management at Sweetwater and had never managed a single person, nor had David. So he and I got through a lot together, getting this place open. We got to the point where we were ready to open, and we realized that we had a pretty serious lack of, accounting, finance, sales experience, marketing, really, and management. So we went out to find
all those little intangibles.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
We designed a whole brewery without really offices. We're like, okay, we do need a CEO. We went out to try to find somebody to be our leader. It took some time. And eventually we got frustrated enough to go to a headhunter and wound up finding this gentleman named Chris Herron, who was attempting to open his own brewery in Atlanta. Went to the same headhunter basically just with a business plan, asking for what the problem with it was, if he was missing a boiler or a chiller or something. And this headhunter was really smart. They said, hey, you guys are looking for him. He's looking for y'all. You should talk. So we linked up. Chris came down, really impressed all of our investors and David and myself and other folks involved, my wife and Blake Tyers, who wound up working with us. And so we we decided to hire him on the spot, worked out a deal. And so really, the three of us founders were the core unit, along with my wife, Katie, and Blake Tyers, head of tap room and our first brewer. 5 of us entered into this and got it going.
So you start off production in Georgia, right? And then you eventually expand into South Carolina and Tennessee.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what were some of the challenges just breaking into other states from Georgia?
Georgia was tremendously supportive for many years, and we did not open another state for 5+ years.
Okay.
It took a long time to really establish ourselves here in Georgia. It happened incrementally. We got a lot of accolades, I will say, early on. We had an IPA that was a little bit different than other things that were in the market. We won a medal in our first year at the Great American Beer Festival, and we started to sell a lot of beer. After we released cans, really, is when it took off. So we kept reinvesting, and just, all the money that we were making, we were basically buying tanks, buying new canning lines, buying quality equipment, and eventually got to the point where we ran out of space here at the Snow Tire facility where we're sitting. So we built the Southern Mill facility, which was probably the greatest challenge that we've overcome during the 11 years. We were operating this brewery at Snow Tire at full capacity, really burst in at the seams. And then to take on a construction project of that scale, it's a 45,000 square foot adaptive reuse facility with is about an $8 million project all in all.
Wow.
Never done anything like that before. State-of-the-art brewing equipment, state-of-the-art laboratory, packaging equipment that was, world-class. So we weren't prepared for that project, I would say. I wound up working 80-hour weeks. It took longer and cost more than we ever anticipated. And by the end of it, we were exhausted. And that's, oftentimes when you're making moves in business, right when you're done building the thing, it's time to operate it. And the real hard work actually begins.
Right.
So, we actually created a value out of that, which was became to be called just Beef for People. And it's really, it's all for naught if you're not taking care of your people. And a lot of us, myself included, got really burnt out during that project. So it was a lesson. It was a hard lesson. Opening that facility is what allowed us to travel outside of the state. So we were really capacity constrained. And another thing that really begat was freshness. So our beer was always semi out of stock for many years. And so it was always wound up being really fresh. And that's another thing that I think has catapulted us on this growth trajectory, is that we've always had really high quality, but really fresh beer. And so as we were able to add that capacity, we still have always attempted to maintain that level of freshness, which can be a hindrance, actually. If you have a machine break and you don't have enough inventory to bridge you a couple weeks while you get a part in from Europe or something like that, you might run out of beer and miss some sales. But we think it's worth it to keep a really fresh product in customers' hands. But 2 states now in addition to Georgia. We're considering another one for next year. I'm excited to announce that before too long. But we've been really judicious with our geographic growth. We much prefer to grow deep roots in the communities that we do operate and be able to offer really fresh beer, really good experience, and a lot of jobs in these local communities that we're operating in. So growth for the sake of geography is not the goal. It's really trying to be a manageable amount of growth. If you go too fast, it's hard to maintain a culture. It's hard to maintain quality of lots of things. So really, a responsible level of growth has always been the target.
Well, so you guys have been literally on a tear for the last 10 years. So just a couple of the stats that I saw, you're one of the 35 largest craft breweries in America.
Number 31.
Number 31. Okay. So in the top 35. Let's see. Classic City Lager has been crushing it at Great American Beer Festival. I love this. You are the official tap room and craft beer of UGA Athletics. How in the world did you get that?
Yeah, that was an effort for a couple years, really courting them and trying to make a deal happen. These things are, it does wind up being expensive to get a partnership like this, but we could not ask for a better partner in UGA. We feel like there are just so many alignments with our organization. They're focused on community. They're being stewards of the environment, of the many ways that they give back to, our community and the world align in a lot of ways. Before we ever inked this partnership, we had collaborated with UGA in literally hundreds of different ways, from engineering capstone projects to using experimental ingredients from their research farm to food science interns, just on and on, ways that we had intersected. It's such an important part of the community here in Athens that when we got this opportunity, we had to pursue it and jump on it. It's fun to work with athletics. I'm being an alumni. I've been a fan since my days here at Georgia. Being able to see the sports interact with some of the disciplines that we interact with, some of the events that we'll have, they're crossing paths sometimes for the first times, which is really fun to see. I am just over the moon to be working with them. It's really fun to have your fate tied in some ways to the fate of the dogs. It makes the games mean a lot for us.
Sure.
The tap room comes alive on game day. We also do away game watch parties, which are really fun. We've got sort of a game day atmosphere in the tap room, some big screens and cheers, and we do glassware giveaways, all kinds of stuff. We meet former players, things like that.
Right.
We have the Red Coat Band here, so it's really fun to be.
That's awesome. Now, pardon my ignorance because I do not know the answer to this question. I've actually never been to a game inside Sanford Stadium. Can I get a Tropicalia inside Sanford?
You can. This will be the second year in a row that we're proudly serving Creature Comforts within Sanford.
So which beers are you serving inside Sanford?
Yeah, we're going to have Tropicalia, Classic City Lager, Classic City Light, and Sip 'em Seltzer this year.
What do you sell the most of in Sanford?
Yeah, Tropicalia is our number one beer in Sanford. It does very well. It's our number one beer across the board. Yeah.
I'm going to play down the Georgia theme a little bit.
Yeah.
You're an alumni. Who is your favorite Georgia Bulldog of all time?
Yeah, all time.
All-time Bulldog.
Man, I am a big Matt Stafford fan.
Okay.
He's a class act quarterback, proved to be the real deal in the NFL. I feel like has done the right thing in his career. So, yeah, good Matt Stafford.
Last Georgia-related question. What's in Kirby's fridge? Which one of your beers is in Kirby's fridge?
I would guess Kirby, is trying to keep it fit, and he's probably a Classic City Light man, if I had to guess.
Okay, that's fair.
3.5 carbs, 95 calories. Keep it keep it real.
That's great. If we can pivot over to impact for a second. In 2022, Creature Comforts chose to add a phrase to your mission statement to be a force of good in the world. I think that's wonderful, but tell me more about what that means to you.
Yeah, being a force for good is really about doing the right thing for all the stakeholders in the brewery. So that's not just the shareholders, that's going to be, the employees, the people in our communities in which we operate, and also just the environment in the world at large. So when we make decisions, we want to use that lens anytime. We want to consider all the stakeholders' well-being and how they might be impacted by a decision. And it's not purely for shareholders. It is there need to be other considerations. We're a privately held company, and we get the ability to make decisions in the way that we see fit. And proud to say that is something that's in our operating agreement. It's in our foundational documents, not just our outward facing. Our board of directors takes the same tack.
Yeah. So one of the programs that you all have at Creature Comforts is the Get Comfortable program. Tell us more about the Get Comfortable program.
It's always been intended, and it's been since year one we've had this program, but it's always intended to serve the greatest need of the communities that we operate in. So we try to be dispassionate about the cause and listen to experts. So the idea being, we don't have a pet cause because we had a family member impacted by X, Y, or Z. We gather a group of experts that convene regularly that tell us what is the pressing need of the community and who is doing the best work. And then we resource the people that are doing the best work with partners within the community and within our own giving as well. So we're not the only contributor. We're often years not even the largest contributor to Get Comfortable. We've got a lot of folks locally and companies that we source supplies from, et cetera, that contribute. So we've always followed the data. What the experts have been telling us, and we're on many years now of being focused on a single metric, which is third grade literacy.
Okay.
Third grade literacy is a very important single number to look at, a rate within your community, because as children go from learning how to read into reading in order to learn, they will fall further and further behind if they're not able to digest information using their reading skills. So if you can point resources at getting them up to speed by that specific age, then the predictors of life outcomes are vastly different. So it's a predictor of what they call the prison pipeline. It's a predictor of, it's just economic success in life, et cetera, and happiness outcomes. So it's a step in the direction of being very, very focused on something singular, whereas in the past we were giving to, say, the top 5 nonprofits that were addressing homelessness, poverty, and hunger. This is now laser focus.
Right.
Proud to say it's going pretty well.
Yeah.
We've up to 2 schools in Clark County that we have intervention programs that we're helping to fund. The test scores are the test scores, and they're incredibly stark when you compare control schools to intervention schools. And so the idea is the program continues to scale as we see success, and eventually hope for it to become adopted and funded by the school board as we sort of show them this is how you do this. Yeah, really, really proud and excited to sustain that effort as long as it takes. The goal is to go from about 20% of students here in Athens, Clark County reading on grade level in third grade to 60% when we're done.
That's amazing. So you all actually won. You were named by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation as the 25th Annual Citizens Awards for this initiative itself. Right?
Really proud of that as a nationwide award to be called the best impact program up against companies like Samsung and Delta.
That's incredible.
We were kind of flabbergasted there. So
yeah. Another program that you guys have is the Brew for One initiative. Can you share more about that?
Absolutely.
Please?
Yeah. The principle is there's always a balance between meaning and impact in philanthropy. So if we only went with impact, 100% of philanthropic dollars would go to starving people in Africa. That's the greatest return on investment in terms of quality life hours per dollar. You need to also have meaning for people. It gets people to give more. It gets people to participate more. And so there has to be a balance. So our Get Comfortable program is really focused on data. Let's make sure we maximize our impact and measure our impact. Brew for One leans more into the meaningful side. So, people who have a giving spirit really want to see a narrative, a story, and they wish that they could do something for someone who is impacted in a way that, they want to intervene. So that we have the same impulse. And sometimes we see people who really need help. It started with a cellar person that we employed years ago who tragically passed away. And we were able to help get some funds for his teenage son's college together. But we don't do it on a particular cadence. It's essentially when we feel really moved by something. It is still involves a beer that we brew that the proceeds from the beer go towards. So we've done recently Whalefall IPA. There was another UGA student who lost their life, and his parents were starting an environmental foundation in his name. So we wanted to be able to help them start this foundation in Berkeley's name. More recently, we did a beer called Fonio Lager, which benefited the Michael James Jackson Foundation, which is a fund that gives brewing scholarships to people of color in the name of trying to diversify our craft beer industry. We've also done LA wildfire relief with this fund. So it's a way for us to sort of bring some flexibility into our really rigid, sort of buttoned up giving that brings us some storytelling and some meaning into people that we intersect with.
If you're curious about learning more about the Brew for One, the different initiatives, if you go to the Creature Comforts website, which is creaturecomfortsbeer.com, there are actually videos of all these different stories and all these different initiatives. Well, I watched all of them, but I was most struck with the whale fall. I didn't even know what a whale fall meant. And when I heard the whole story of the whale fall, I was like, oh my gosh, what an incredible story and what a worthy cause. So that's really cool that you'll actually create like a craft beer and those proceeds go to, fuel that initiative. So that's awesome. I think the quote was an opportunity to do for one person what we wish we could do for everyone. That's right. It's a beautiful statement. But it doesn't stop there. Sustainability initiatives also seem to be a huge driver for you guys. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
As we built the Southern Mill facility, we took out a loan. We realized we could buy some equipment that really has an ROI in terms of efficiency. So really for the first time, had a little bit of disposable money to get a really nice boiler that's just really efficient, to get a really nice brew kit that does a better job of extracting all of the sugar out of the barley and really wasting nothing. So that was our first really big step into this world. Shortly thereafter, we added a role for a longtime employee, this guy named Jacob Yarbrough, who's been a day one employee, year one, as sustainability manager. So his sole job is to focus on, our resource intensity and our resource utilization, and not just from a dollars and cents perspective, from an environmental perspective. So his big signature project was in 2020. We benchmark all our scope 1 carbon emissions and said, all right, here's what we do per barrel in terms of carbon emissions. We set a 4-year goal to reduce by 5% overall, but we also said no matter how much we grow, we're going to have to reduce it by 5%. Okay. So during that time, we almost doubled in volume and added a lot of square footage to our operation. We added offices, but through Jacob's and our maintenance team and our production team's effort, as well as organizationally, we did things like on the commercial sales team, changing over to hybrid vehicles, things like that. We were able to more than half our carbon footprint per barrel of beer brewed over those 4 years. Huge accomplishment by Jacob and the team, just in carbon reduction. But, it breaks down into all the different resources that we use: water, carbon dioxide, natural gas, electricity. So we, as a part of that effort, went to 100% renewable electricity. So we have a lot of solar on site. The rest of the electricity that we consume, we purchase renewable energy credits. So basically that's renewable power that the power company is producing that we're laying claim to by buying it at a premium. Right. So we're 100% renewable there. We also got True Zero Waste certified at both locations that produce beer. So we have a 99.9% landfill diversion rate at both places. And that's everything from any hazardous material. We're incredibly responsible when it comes to waste, and we're always seeking out materials that can avoid landfill.
Yeah, that was one of the most impressive stats that really caught my eye was how little from your facilities actually make it to a landfill. It's essentially nothing.
Yeah, it's very little. It really is kind of here in the tap room. It's what people bring in that we can't control.
So we're sitting here in Cura, which is the latest and greatest initiative of Creature Comforts. Is you're now getting into the distilling. Please share some more about that.
Yeah. So as a purpose-driven company, our purpose, I haven't said yet, but it's to foster human connection. So we have always felt like beer has a special role in getting people to lower their barriers and to connect with one another. It can be used responsibly. So we see ourselves with a unique ability to bridge some gaps in the world. And we feel like the world's biggest problems are often rooted in a lack of understanding of one another or a lack of connection. And life's best moments are in the times where we can actually connect to one another. So that's where we want our organization to be centered. When we started to think about how to connect with more people as the driving sort of nature of our business is like, we want to continue to grow as an organization. We want to spread this connection. We recognize that beer is not for everybody. And, we went through an exercise where we considered all kinds of things, coffee, even juices and things like that. And we decided we wanted to constrain into adult beverage. Felt like we're good at that, and that using our brand in non-adult beverage could be confusing. So we decided that spirits was the next sort of frontier for us. Also, as makers of, really what we hope are beautiful and interesting beverages, it's always been a curiosity. We didn't have anyone internally who was expert at this, so we knew it would be an adventure to learn. I, started spending some time along with our head of innovation here, Gabe Slagle, to just sort of wrap our heads around what distilling could look like. And we just decided as an organization to take the plunge. So what that looks like is a still that we built here on site at Snow Tire, our original facility, and a pilot still as well. So we're really in the heat of imagining what these products can be. We've also built Cura, which is attached to the original brewery here downstairs, where we are showcasing these experiments, really. And it's, for us, it is an experimental and iterative process right now. And we're, feel like everything is tasting good enough to sell to the public and get feedback, but we're still iterating. So, we're inviting people along with us. Curiosity is another tenet of a value of ours, to crave curiosity. And I like to invite, anybody who will come along with us on curious sort of adventures. And so that's what Cura is for us. We're really exploring something new, taking people along with us, just trying to have a little bit of fun, bringing more people into the fold.
Well, I'm very happy to go on that journey with you.
Yeah.
James Lewis, so what's in my refrigerator? I'll tell you. Thanks for asking, Adam. Tropicalia, for sure.
Yeah,
Automatic, home run.
Yeah, thank you.
Flash Cat, also great. But James Lewis also loves an old fashioned.
Oh, yeah.
James Lewis loves a martini.
Yeah.
James Lewis wants to sample cocktails and drinks that are uniquely Athenian.
Yes.
Right? So what are the hours of Cura? When can people come by and check this place out?
We're currently open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We open at 5 p.m. Okay. We are interested in adding time as we sort of gain more and more drinks. Again, we're kind of basic, starting out with we have vodka, we have rum, we have American agave, we have bourbon now. Just sort of adding as we fill out the bar a little bit. But yeah, it's right attached to our tap room here in downtown Athens, 5 o'clock Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
So you've sampled the cocktails. Does Adam have a favorite?
Yeah, the gin basil smash is doing it for me. Our gin is incredibly flavorful. I'm a gin drinker. It's a very coriander heavy gin, and it's just bursting with like florals, and it's really delightful. With basil, it kind of puts it over the top.
It's awesome. You guys have won several awards for your products. Are there any awards that you're most proud of, or that you think are just really stand out to you?
Yeah, thanks. Winning a Great American Beer Festival or a World Beer Cup medal is always a highlight. You're in a room full of the best brewers in the country, best brewers in the world, and it's like a Price is Right, like kind of come on down moment when your name hits that board. Everybody is just ecstatic. The energy's amazing. We've had years where we struck out, but the years where you win, it's always amazing. But the real standout has been for our beer, Classic City Lager, which is near and dear to my heart. Really crushable, but still craft lager, to win 2 golds at the Great American Beer Festival. Basically, a very credible organization calling your beer the best American Pilsner twice was a very stark and stunning experience for us, and one that we're incredibly proud of. We take very seriously the quality of our beer and have reinvested tremendously. We have 5 full-time scientists that work in the lab, 2 PhDs, have spent a fortune on really the best of the best brewing equipment, and have trained up some of the very best people that make this stuff. So, getting those accolades is a high watermark that we try to savor and appreciate.
The last thing that we didn't touch on, but let's definitely hit it, because I know there are plenty of fans of this type of drink. We covered beer, we covered spirits, but you also offer a vodka-based seltzer, correct? Yep. Is that Sunglow?
Yeah, Sunglow is a part of our foray into spirits for the first time. So along with that licensing, we get the ability to use spirits in things like ready-to-drink cocktails. So these have become really popular over the past few years. I personally prefer these a little bit over the malt-based versions. The vodka just provides really clean flavor and a excellent backdrop for us to do just whatever we want, really, which is really fun for us. We get to play with flavor, which is a real honor. And a cool thing about these, they're different, fundamentally different from brewing beer, in that really you just mix them together. So we can iterate. In fact, just yesterday, our head of quality and our director of innovation tried 47 iterations of the next flavor of Sunglow in one sitting. Wow. And we're able to...
Is he still standing?
Yeah, I think they were spitting, okay. I hope. But when you brew a beer, you have to have this supreme level of patience. It takes 2 or 3 weeks to get a result, and then you sort of try again. But it's allowing us a new outlet for creativity, and I'm really very passionate about these drinks too.
Okay,
it's fun.
So Sunglow Citrus, Sunglow Tropicals, Kirby, in case you're listening, less than 100 calories.
It's true,
right?
yeah.
Gluten-free,
Yeah,
4.5% alcohol by volume, 4-packs in sleek cans.
Yes.
So that's out there for consumption as we speak.
Yes.
So I'm going to move over to the gift portion of the show.
Okay, yeah.
If you are a guest on the Retire Southern podcast, we have the Ferrari of trucker hats. So it's the Richardson 112. You have the option for the blue and white. That's the Coastal. The Campfire is green and black. The Classic, which may go with the Classic City Lager, is navy and khaki. Adam, which hat would
The
you
Classic is speaking to me. I like navy blue and like the
Okay.
tan back. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
thank you so much.
that's for you.
This is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll get to retire in a few years.
like? So yeah, that's a great place to close out. If you could retire anywhere in the world,
Yeah.
or anywhere in the South, more specifically,
Yeah.
what is where is that for Adam?
Yeah, my wife and I talk about this a lot. We still have a pretty young child, and we love Athens. We would not move anywhere right now.
Okay.
But some of my best memories and, some of my favorite times have ever been in St. Augustine, Florida, where my wife's family's been vacationing for over 50 years. It's a magical place that is probably calling us in our retirement, I would say.
Okay, all right. Somewhere near Sawgrass, or are you a golfer? Or?
I'm not a golfer. We usually stay in it's just south of St. Augustine Beach. It's on an island there, just south of the downtown. And we just veg out. We cook meals every night. Sometimes we'll get on a boat, but it's mostly just about family and the ocean and cooking good food.
Well, you and I are going to get along just fine. I'm not a golfer either. So, man, I really appreciate you having me here today. I'll just close it out with this. Thank you for listening to Retire Southern. You can find this episode and more on our website, retiresouthern.com. You can also follow Retire Southern on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. If you have any questions or feedback, hit me up, james@retiresouthern.com. I cannot wait to try my first Kira cocktail.
That's right.